Are you nervous because you've got that first big IT certification coming up and you really don't know how to study for it? In this How to Get Started in IT episode, I'm going to share with you my tips for crushing that first IT certification. The first thing that I would recommend you do, I don't care what IT certification you're studying for, find the exam blueprint. And right as I say that, I'm thinking about all of the comments that are going to come into this video that are going to say, what's a blueprint? It's what I always call the exam objectives. Sometimes an exam manufacturer will call them blueprints. Sometimes they'll call them objectives. Sometimes they'll call them like the goals of the exam. Hunt on that vendor's website because somewhere there are going to be bullet points that are going to cover what is going to be in your exam. And I think that is the most logical starting point, the best place to start. Once you have this blueprint, I want you to read it very carefully, really carefully, because oftentimes you're going to get key clues in exactly how you have to study in that exam blueprint. Let me give you a quick example. There's a classic thing in Cisco certifications that will be revealed to you inside of the blueprint. And it's the fact that they will say something like, describe network time protocol. And that tells me right away that it's going to be mainly theory that I'm tested on for network time protocol. If they wanted me to configure it and prove that I could configure it, they would say in the exam objectives, configure and verify network time protocol. So do you see how reading very carefully and looking for keywords like describe versus configure and verify can go a long way to telling you exactly what you need to study? And there's a big difference in being able to describe network time protocol compared to configuring network time protocol. So really, really pick apart that blueprint as you read it. The next thing that I want you to do is check in on the exam's format. How many questions are there going to be? What style of questions are there? Are there multiple choice, true and false? It's been a long time since I've seen a true and false question. Is there simulations? Are you going to actually be having to configure the gear or the technology as you take the exam? So it's very important that you figure out exactly what are the rules of this exam. How many questions? How much time do you have? Something else that I want you to do is check with who's providing this exam because oftentimes they'll have some sample questions for you. Amazon Web Services is a great example of this. AWS will give you typically about 10 sample questions so you get to see exactly what that real testing experience is like. Now, what if you look and there are no gimme questions from the vendor? Don't panic. Here at ITProTV, we have a full complement of practice exams, oftentimes more difficult than the real thing, so you can get a great sense for exactly the level of expertise you need to have in that exam environment. Now, you've gotten the objectives, you've learn the rules of the game, like how many questions, how much time you'll have, and the types of questions. You've gotten your hands on some sample questions. Now you're ready to start your studying, and I want you to get out that calendar because it is now time to schedule your study sessions. And oftentimes you need the buy-in of your significant other, your family, your friends. You might not be able to make bowling night. You may have to schedule a study session for that evening. I would recommend too, maybe kind of varying the lengths of those sessions. Be realistic. I'm remembering right now studying for my CCIE, and I would do like 3 hours Tuesday night, 3 hours Wednesday night, and then like 4 hours Thursday night, and then take Friday night off, and then Saturday would be a 10-hour session. I'm not kidding. 10 hours on Saturday. So notice I was varying the times and the length of those study sessions to assist me. You don't always want to try and target 10 hours a day. You would burn out pretty quickly. But I can't emphasize it enough. Get those things scheduled. The next thing I want you to consider doing as you're prepping for this IT certification is figure out the balance that works for you on reading versus watching versus doing. So what I like to do is I just had to learn Ansible, like to a very, very high level of expertise. So I went to ITProTV and I checked out the Ansible videos and was like, oh yeah, these are the ones, this is going to be killer. And I decided on an approach of watching the video, then I did reading on the documentation for Ansible that accompanied or that worked well against that video. Then I watched the video again, taking notes. Then I went and actually practiced with Ansible. So notice my approach was to watch the ITProTV video, read, watch the video again, take notes, then practice. And I found that that flow worked perfect for me in mastering the material. You need to figure out your flow. I talk to a lot of students that are like, I just watch and do. Don't like to read, not my thing. I, on the other hand, I'm a big reader. So the reading part of it is a critical element to my mastery. So figure out how you best want to do this. Others, by the way, say they have to do. Dooby-dooby-doo. They'll do practice labs after practice labs after practice labs before they feel proficient with the technology. And that's great. Don't be ashamed of that if you're one of those individuals. Now, as you're getting closer to your exam, you're going to want to assemble the tools that are going to make you perfectly comfortable in that exam. And that might be flashcards. For many of these exams, flashcards are really one of the best ways that you can prepare. If the exam is, maybe it's a CompTIA exam in a very broad subject area like Network Plus, there are so many terms you need to know the definition of that might be new to you in a field like that. Flashcards are perfectly appropriate as a way in which to build that vocabulary in the wonderful world of networking. So create those flashcards. And by the way, I'm still super old school. I use the index cards to make flashcards with, something I've been doing since high school. Still do it to this day, 45 years later, or no, that would have made me 5 years old in high school. 35 years ago when I was in high school, I was using index cards for flashcards, and I still do it that way today. A lot of folks love electronic flashcard apps and websites and stuff like that. Great. Again, find the approach that works for you. In addition to flashcards, you're probably going to want to do full-blown practice exams. But notice where I'm saying you should be doing that. That is towards the end of your study. One of the traps that I want you to avoid is trying to learn the material through practice exams. I do not like that. I do not recommend that. It's a tempting way to go for students that I want you to avoid. The idea is, okay, if I just take 900 practice questions and really go through those, I'll not only know the material, but I'll inevitably have seen anything they could ask me, and then I'll ace the test. I do not like that approach at all. I want you to go through with your watch and read and do mix across your study sessions through that entire exam blueprint. And then, and only then, do I want you taking practice exams to see what you need to work on. That's really the point of the practice exam. Not to teach you the material, the practice exam is there to test you on what you might need to read more about, to do more practice with, or to watch more of our ITProTV videos. So please keep that in mind. Use those practice exams for what they were designed for, and that is to see what you don't know, to see what areas you need to build your mental strength in. So, I know I've given you a lot of information on how to really get prepared for that IT certification exam. Don't be afraid to watch this video a few times and take some notes on this video as you're getting up to speed with these IT certs. Don't worry, by the middle of your career, as I'm in the middle, starting to tail off towards the end of my IT career, as that happens with me, these exams become second nature. And I do the stuff that I'm talking to you about just like, like I would spell my middle name. Joseph, I think. It's Joseph. But when you're first starting out, I know this can be very intimidating, and I hope this walkthrough of tips on how to prepare for your IT certification exam is going to save you a lot of stress and is going to save you a lot of money and time in potential retakes of these exams. And one note on that, don't ever feel bad about yourself if you shouldn't pass one of these exams on a first try. I know you're probably like me and you're not accustomed to failing exams. I had never failed an exam before in my life until it came to IT certification. So it was a very strange, daunting thing, but don't be ashamed. We all fail these tests. It's going to happen, and you just learn from it. Now you really know what you need to study harder on, and then you're going to go back in there and you're going to crush it on that second or third or fourth or fifth attempt, or 82nd or 83rd. Don't worry, you will pass it. Well, I bet you have some excellent tips on how to pass your IT certification exam with ease. Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes on how to get started in IT. My name is Anthony Sequeira with ITProTV, and thanks so much for joining me.